The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Hi, welcome to Chasing Purpose, and I'm your host, Kathleen. I am so happy that you're here today. And if this is your first time, I'm really glad you found your way in. And I hope you stay a while. If you've been here before, well, welcome back. Today, I want to talk about something that I think is very impactful for not only our life, our relationship, but our health. And I actually think that it's more damaging than what clinics would call the silent killer of blood pressure. Blood pressure is certainly something to be concerned about, and it can destroy you from the inside out. And you have to be careful of what happens when you have that condition. But what we don't talk about is resentment. And resentment is something that we carry inside of us. And if we don't deal with it, it can simmer and bubble over like nothing we've ever seen without warning signs, just the damage and that hum or low simmer, or it's like walking with a pebble or a rock in your shoe. It's just annoying. And people and things around you become annoying, and it accumulates over time until something breaks. And resentment works the same way as high blood pressure. You carry it every day and it feels normal to you. Maybe you just have sat in such a condition or a mindset of being angry or not expressing what you need to express to somebody. And you've gotten so used to the low grade simmer or anger that's sitting in your chest and in your body, you barely notice anymore. But it's hurting you, believe me, slowly and quietly from the inside out. It may be presenting itself in a belly and with a simmer there, or a headache, or back pain, or something physical as well. So watch for the signs. And here's the part that no one tells you, that resentment does also hurt people around you. It's hurting you and it's hurting others. And let me tell you about a client I have, Rachel. Now, she and I have been working together for a short time, but when she first came to see me, she came in with a list, let's just say, a list of complaints and let's say, arguments of things that weren't going her way. Her husband, her kids, her boss, her job, her friends, her physical condition. For several sessions, I listened to her complain about everyone and everything that she had on her list. And it seemed like her list just kept getting longer. And of course, I validated her and understood her feelings at the time and understood what she was trying to tell me with what she expected of people, perhaps didn't tell them and oftentimes, but that she was so angry with people not being able to make her happy. And session after session, a couple of them, it was the same complaints, the same people, the same things. And I listened week after week. And one day I finally asked her the question. I said, Rachel, what part of all of these things, these complaints, these situations, or these people that you're talking about is yours? And she looked at me like I had attacked her, like I had literally slapped her across the face. She said, my part, I'm not doing anything wrong. They are. And that was it. She left, and I suddenly became probably the top complaint on her list to someone else. She came back the next week, and we talked about what was important for her to hear was her contribution to those relationships and to those things that were getting her. And she said to me that I've been thinking about what you asked, and that I've been blaming others for everything else, for my unhappiness, for my pains and my aches and my lack. And I've been looking for outside validation from people and outside movement from people that hasn't been there in the way that I wanted to. I talked to her, and she and I talked about how she was showing up, for example, with her husband and how he was showing up for her. And actually, I thought he was doing, and I felt that he was doing a really good job. He was trying to be present for her and the kids, and certainly had his roles of what he thought was important inside and outside of the house. And that it really wasn't his job or anybody else's to be responsible for Rachel's emotions or feelings, or more importantly, her behavior. She had to be in charge of it. So I talked to her, and I've heard it through my clients, and I heard it when I was going through therapy and from my therapist. And it was one of my aha moments when I was asked, and I asked my clients, what percent of that relationship are you showing up with and for? And when I was asked that several years ago, decades probably ago, I would say probably that I am participating and doing 50% of it, right? I'm showing up, and my 50% and his 50% equaled the 100% that was needed in a healthy relationship. I realized when my therapist looked at me in shock and was like, 50%, is that all you're going to show up with? Is just half of what you can give? And I was like, oh, that's right. Just because the math adds up to 100 doesn't mean that that's how I should be showing up. There's a lot of things that go into that 100%. And what it is, it's my 100% goes into it, and my partner's 100% goes into it. It's not an addition. It's really the collective that they show up with 100% and I show up with 100%, and we're giving it our all. Certainly, there are days that I'm only able to feel and give 80% or 20%, whatever it is. And if I'm self-aware enough, and my clients get to the point or are self-aware enough, we're comfortable enough, being brave enough and vulnerable enough to tell our partners or our kids or our bosses or whomever we're in contact or a relationship with that I just don't have the other percentage to give my total 100% today or in that situation. And that's okay. So Rachel and I walked through the relationships with her husbands and her kids. She has teenagers. We all have teenagers at some point in our lives. And those are challenging times, not only for them, but for us, right? I love my son immensely. He is such a huge part of my life, as any child should be or children should be. But, middle school and teenage times are tough. They're tough on him, and they're tough on me, and they're tough to see him go through, right? But I do the best that I can to understand that during those times when his hormones or his emotions or his feelings can't be expressed the way that I would like them to, that I have to give him grace and understand and know that he can't give me, maybe because he doesn't know how to at that age, his 100% back into our relationship. And that's okay. As long as it's for a short period of time and it doesn't become a lifestyle, right? We start with a habit, and habits, in my opinion and in my feeling, can be formed very quickly. And they tend to, again, in my opinion, can be made or broken in 21 days. I think that if you have a habit and you want to create a good habit by going to the gym, or you want to change maybe a negative habit by maybe looking at your phone more time than you should, or eating something that you shouldn't, or going to some kind of negative behavior, if you give yourself 21 days of conscious awareness that you want to make the change, you should be able to do it. Those things can happen when you give it your 100%, right? And that doesn't mean because you're giving that habit or that person or that relationship the 100% that you don't have anything left for anybody else or anything else. It just means that you're giving it your all. That's what that means. So there's a habit. And then the next thing is a pattern, right? When something lasts a long time or moves to a longer period of time or a duration, those things can then become a pattern. We all come into our adult life with patterns from our childhood, right? We observe, we model the familiarity of our parents' relationship or our siblings or things that we feel familiar or comfortable with. Those are things that can become patterns. And as an adult, they're harder to, or as anyone, they're harder to break a pattern than it is to break a habit. And maybe not harder is the right word, but maybe they take a little bit more time, right? If I am, a coffee drinker and I have to have my coffee, during the day or throughout the day, and I want to stop because of Lent or because of my own choices or health reasons or medical conditions, if I've been doing it for 20 years, breaking the pattern of being a coffee drinker is probably going to take longer than the 21 days of a habit. That's just kind of what it takes. You can't put something into your body for decades, months, or years and expect it to just be removed without a lot of work and without some time. And the same thing. So habit to pattern, then to lifestyle. And how I'm getting back to this is that we have to be careful that resentment and anger and that simmering feeling of cringe worthiness, that's a great word, I think, for the today, should never become a lifestyle, right? I have said it in past episodes, and I hope that you've heard it not only from me, but from others, right? Misery loves company. And when people are unhappy or in a negative mindset, that energy can be contagious. And we want to be careful with it. We want to be careful to observe it and not be brought down by it. I had a neighbor, and back to Rachel, she and I worked hard, and she worked hard to not only break the habit of her complaining or being the victim, but we worked hard on spinning her mindset and changing her mindset to not be triggered in those situations and not blame other people, or more importantly, put herself in the role of being the victim, that she had a choice in how she received other people's energies like we all do, and how we received their personalities and their comments and how we get triggered by them, and more importantly, how we don't get triggered by them. So again, Rachel's in a much better place, and I work with her all the time, and I love her, and she's doing great work. But she also realizes that she had a lot of things that she needed to deal with and how she showed up to things. And so now she's participating in a very different dynamic within those relationships and within those people. And it's great to see. It's nice to see her taking accountability and responsibility and answering her own calls for happiness and joy, and for telling people and setting the right expectations with the right pace and at the right time. You don't figure out how to fight or how to disagree or how to deal with conflict during a conflict, right? You try to deal with it, and you deal with it and set expectations prior to them. So that's what Rachel did, and others are doing as well. And I'll give you another example. I have a neighbor who went through a joint replacement surgery. Those are tough. At any age, those are tough. And I, again, being neighborly and being friendly, I offered to help. Of course, I made meals and took care of him and showed up through the early stages of her recovery. But then after a while, she needed help with just one small task. It was only a couple minutes every day. And I showed up, and it was putting her socks and shoes on. And I did it every day for her. I would just show up and, without questions and without ask, I would just go over about the same time every day and just help out. Well, she was grateful at first. She appreciated it. But then all of a sudden, she started to be angry. And sometimes she could be nasty, and I could feel the energy as soon as I walked up her stoop or up her stairs into her home. I could feel that this was going to be a tough day. And I understood that she was frustrated because she couldn't do a simple task of putting her socks and shoes on. That would be discouraging for anybody. It would take away your independence, perhaps. And I said to her after a couple days of feeling this energy of one-word answers and just this coldness for her, I said, with grace, is being angry and nasty to me changing that you have a challenge of not being able to put your socks and shoes on? Is it helping the frustration go any better by expressing your anger towards me? And she didn't say anything, and I said it with grace. Again, I wanted to bring it to her conscious level that, I was there to help, and I was there to provide guidance and whatever support I could for her. And I wasn't judging her because she couldn't put on her socks and shoes. I didn't really care. It was something I could do really quickly. But it was much easier and better to do when the tone, the mood, and the energy was more positive than it was when it was negative. And so I left that day, and as I always did, and said, "See you tomorrow," and all that. And the next day I showed up, and I could feel the energy was a shift. And I could feel that she understood what I was saying, that I knew she was struggling, and I knew that she wouldn't always be struggling. And if she did, we would take care of that too. But I wasn't there to receive her anger or her frustrations in the way that she was giving it to me. And I wasn't going to react to it. So she then softened up. It was a lot better. It was the conscious level or the awareness that she was able to receive from my grace or kind words in a nice way was basically saying, "Hey, I'm here to help. You don't need to take your frustrations out on me. And when you do, it doesn't make it any easier for you to get to putting your socks and shoes on any quicker." So we came to an understanding without any apologies or without any kind of conflict or resolution there, just in our own way of just me bringing it to her attention and breaking that habit that could have been created or the pattern of the lifestyle. So you have to understand that your energy and your mindset has a lot of power, and you can really have to embrace when you are getting a little angry at someone or something, that if you stay that way, your words and your body language and your approach to a situation can be impactful, right? Words have power and meaning. And whether you want to say things in a negative way, your tone and your body language can do it for you. So you have to be careful. We have to be patient and more understanding and more flexible. Just like the things that we want from a relationship, the love, honor, respect, and understanding, we need to give, right? That's the 100% that I was talking about. We don't just give those 50%, or we don't withhold our emotions to punish someone or give one word answers or act like a teenager when we're not teenagers, right? I have a teenager and I was a teenager, so I understand what those feelings are. But I don't want to, promote those negative teenage feelings or emotions. I want to acknowledge them when he has them and understand them. And more importantly, I want him to understand them. And I want to be able to say to him, like, that tone, I don't think that's going to work for me. Instead of his tone reflecting back on me and then me having a tone. Again, I'm not perfect. There are times when that happens, when I get caught off guard and uncentered and I get triggered. We all do. But I try to do the triggering or being triggered less and less, right? I try to work with grace as opposed to a negative tone and help him and help others. And that's what we're here to do. We're here, we as the collective unit and individually and within our own relationships, we're here to participate in them, give everything we can, the 100% to our children, to our partners, to our work, to our careers, to our loved ones and our social circle. It sounds draining. It's not, because what we're receiving back should be their 100%. And therefore, we're receiving the same amount of energy and positive feelings and conversation and words back to us. So we're then being automatically filled with things that we're giving up, right? That's how relationships work. We should be around people and find commonalities within language and tone and love and joy and passion and all of those things, so that what we're giving, we're receiving, right? If we're constantly running up against a child or teenager or a partner or a boss that is not in the best moods or negative or hard to have a conversation with or one word answering, that often wears on us. And yes, anger can set in, and disappointment and discouragement and all of that can trigger us. But the best approach, in my opinion, in my counseling and coaching, is to try to have people understand that their negativity is theirs. Their behavior is theirs and their choice, and try to understand, although it can have influence on our moods and our day and our thoughts and emotions, it shouldn't control them, right? We shouldn't be controlled. It's not probably not the right word. We shouldn't be impacted heavily in a negative way by someone else's negative tone, emotions, and behavior. We listen to it, we acknowledge it, maybe not verbally. We try to understand it, maybe try to respect it, at least their viewpoints, not necessarily their tone or their words or choice of them, but we try to at least understand what they're trying to have us hear. And most of the time, what they're trying to have us hear, as we're trying to voice to them, is that they want something from us. We don't often know how to vocalize that. I don't, when we have fears and concerns and nervousness or anxiety, it doesn't come out as, "Hey, I'm afraid. I'm concerned. I am anxious." It comes out as, "I want you to do something. I want you to fix it. I don't like what you just did or how you just behaved." So we turn it to try to manipulate or control the situation so that our anxiety and fears and negative mindset is joined by others, right? I mean, misery loves company again. And we have to be very careful of that, how we present our frustrations, how we present our anger, how we listen and look for bids from our kids and our partners and our coworkers about what their needs are. It doesn't mean we have to fulfill them. That's not our role and responsibility to fulfill other people's needs on such an emotional level that it drains our own needs. That's not what we're here to do. As we're sitting on the plane, I'll use an analogy that we all have seen. It's that put your mask on first, then help others. And that's the same thing with our own emotions, is you check your own emotions and your own instances when you're in a situation. How would I deal with this? Do I want to have an outburst? Do I want to have a fight? All of those types of things. No, we don't want to do that. Sometimes we're hungry or hangry, as I say to my son, or sometimes we just feel off, we're tired, we're in pain. Those things can trigger us, and we take it out on the people that we love. Maybe we want them to understand our pain so much that we want them to be unhappy or feel for us, right? We want our partners or our kids to understand that things aren't going the way we want them to. Well, by having them join us in a negative mindset or in a bad mood isn't going to help those things and change those. What's going to help that situation or that change is us individually. We're going to have to make the conscious decision, like the neighbor did or I did when I brought it to her attention, about being able to satisfy our own needs and straighten out, both physically, our centering, so that we can participate in relationships with everybody at every level in a healthy, productive, and satisfying way. That's what we're here to do, is we're here to engage. We're human beings, right? We want to be with other people. We want to collaborate. We want to have companionship. We want to have conversations, even if you're an introvert. We want to have human touch, human contact, the availability of someone else to discuss and hear us. And how we do that is not through anger or lashing out or tempers, right? It's about being able to cool ourselves, center ourselves, take a deep breath, pause, and express what our fear, our anxiety, our desires, and our needs and wants are so that they can at least be heard, not fulfilled by anybody else. I mean, I've been in relationships where I've said to people like, hey, I don't like the way that you've talked to me or you've treated me. And if it happens again, I'm out, and they hear it. And it's not a warning, it's just a standard I want to set with them. Like, that's not good. And I have to look at it from their side. Their intention is not to push me away or to be mean or one word answer me or to be I use the analogy and it just popped in my head, like, again, a teenager in high school, when you're walking down the hallway and someone turns their shoulder or their back to you purposely to leave you out in the cold. Well, that's not maybe what someone's intent is, but that's how they are showing themselves that they don't have the capacity to be there for you at that time. And so I have had to respect and have to respect, and we all have to respect what other people can give us during a certain time. And it may not be what we need, want, or even desire. But if it becomes a habit, then we have to at least talk to them about it. And if it becomes a pattern, then even more so. We have to say that I'm not liking this, that it's changing the dynamic in the relationship, that I don't like when you turn your back on me. I don't like when I feel dismissed or that I feel as though you're insensitive or uncaring or not listening purposely, that your body language and your tone is telling me that. And if you have struggles or challenges and that's the way that you're presenting them, then let's talk about them and work through that situation. So resentment doesn't set in. I'm a person that grew up in an Irish family, and Irish families, at least the ones that I knew of, I grew up on a multi-generational street. There's a level of stubbornness that was amongst my uncles mostly and my external extended family. My father seemed to be the peacemaker of his siblings, and my father's nickname was Buddy, and everybody was drawn to my father and seemed to come to him. And he was the one that was the most calm, I would say, of the siblings, of his siblings. And I wouldn't say that I ever saw outbursts or any of that, but I did see some family members hold grudges. And I often wonder, what purpose or intent is that, to be cold, to really choose to be standoffish and cold to someone else? What's the intent of that? I see it with adults and kids and parents and people all the time, where they choose to remove themselves from a conversation or a situation in a dramatic way. They sit, at a social event in another room, perhaps, or they won't go into a room when someone else is there. And I just shake my head and scratch my temple and say, what is the intent with that? What is the outcome? What's the long game there? Is it that they are trying to prove themselves and that they're angry and they don't have enough self-awareness to talk to somebody about their anger or their feelings? Are they trying to drive the other person away? Because if they don't want to talk about it, do they want the other person to leave and they want to isolate that person or ostracize that person in a social setting where it becomes so uncomfortable that they quit coming to events or they quit participating? I don't understand that. I saw that a lot with family, and I see it with social settings now, even as adults. And I just always shake my head. I don't understand the grudges. Don't know what the purpose is. I think that if I'm angry, and again, I grew up with a family I saw some stubbornness and I saw some grudges being held, that because I didn't understand what the purpose was or was the intent. I always thought, I'm not going to be like that. I think we see patterns that we like, and I hope even as children, we see patterns that we don't like, and we can choose, and they come along with us. But as adults, and as we evolve through our own experiences and our own relationships and our own maybe therapy or whatever we need to do to have our own self growth or self-awareness, that we choose the better patterns, the more positive ones than the negative ones. And so I saw those patterns, and I chose as an adult or even as a kid to not understand them. And I never wanted to understand them to the point of wanted to feel them, right? I have relationships now with extended family, that people that you grew up with, that were the dearest of friends and the most special relationships, that I can't have a conversation now because they're mad about something that I would love to talk to them about, that they're not willing to, and they don't maybe understand their own anger about it. And they don't want to move on beyond it. It's like a control or a manipulation. So I don't, those are things that I always often become, even with my own experience and years, decades of therapy, I don't understand when people hold grudges or are stubborn. I had siblings and family members that are stubborn, or people that I love in relationships that are very stubborn and can be, I don't know, pig-headed, I would say, or hard-headed, let's just say it that way, where they can not talk to somebody for days. And I think, oh, that only is hurting them, right? I don't understand it. If you have experiences like that. And so again, back to my teenager son, is I'm trying to let him know that the things he sees in environments where he sees some maybe stubbornness or some grudges being held or some things, is that you acknowledge those things. You understand that that's the person's choice to do those. That's that person's own individual decision and behavior, that we can look at and acknowledge it and shrug our shoulders and say that there they are again, or that's whoever in the relationship. But that I'm not going to bring that with me in my relationships, right? I'm not going to choose to be stubborn or choose to be hold a grudge. I always say, and I'm sure you've heard it on other episodes, grace over grudge. Because what's the intent of holding a grudge and being angry? Again, it's that resentment. It's that deep down, like, someone did me wrong and therefore I have to be angry. And instead of going to them and saying, hey, I didn't like this behavior and I didn't like how you treated me and my feelings were hurt, and whether the relationship can be repaired, it's still important for everyone to be able to process the good behavior and to help people deal with their bad behaviors as well, right? We want to do it in the right time. We don't want to go to somebody with maybe a olive branch when they're on fire, right? A fire will just burn that olive branch up pretty quickly. So we want to be careful with when we do those things and when we participate in a communicative environment when we're trying to help a negative situation. My son and I, again, he's a great example today, and I have to think about the things I'm sharing, but he and I have a word that we use, and I've used it in other relationships as well, and it's the word purple. And that's how, when we're in conflict and the conflict suddenly becomes so unproductive that we're not even listening to each other, we're just talking to try to convince the other of our own opinions or emotions or pain or fear or anxiety. We say, he says, I say. I've done it in other relationships as well. The word purple. And you have to do it with the understanding that that's the safe word. That's the word you say before someone hits the nuclear codes or says something. Another term that I like to use is before they ring a bell, because once you ring a bell, you can't unring it, right? You can't ring a bell and then think that people didn't hear it. It's wrong. It's hurtful in an instance when it can be meant that way, right? There's relationships and there's clients that I deal with that come to me and I see, and I've also done a little bit, a couple of things, a couple of relationships or coaching sessions. And when I see people come and they're so angry and so caught up in trying to convince the spouse of their opinion that they say something because they're so hurt themselves that they want to hurt their partner and or their child or whomever it is. And so they just throw something out, and you can't unring that bell. You can't undo the nuclear code that just blew up something. It's hard to come back from that. So that's why we have to be careful of resentment, that we have to be careful of the anger and the cringe worthiness that we get, or we try to give this energy to people to say, I'm so angry at you that you need to change, right? That anger or stubbornness or grudges will promote change. It may, for a short time, people may try to walk on eggshells and try to do the things that the person who's angry want you to do. But if you're doing something for someone else's behavioral pattern to change, you're trying to change somebody instead of changing yourself in order to deal with the situation, right? I mean, certain situations come up where people can be mad and say something. It happens often. I hear it, that you can say something to somebody or behave the way that you are or anybody is, and you'll say, well, why are you mad now? And they're mad because of your behavior. And then that behavior triggers something. So then they even get more mad. But that's just who you are. You have to accept and you have to appreciate and love people for whatever they give, no matter the percentage. But we collectively and individually have to give the 100%, because that's what you want from them. You want them to give the 100%, the 100% of understanding, the 100% of respect, the 100% of love and desire and vulnerability. You cannot have in my opinion and my feeling, you cannot have a fulfilling emotional connection with somebody. You can't receive it or give it if you're not willing to be vulnerable, because you're always going to live in the fear that if this person really knew me, they wouldn't love me. You should be confident and brave enough and vulnerable enough to show that person who you are, everything, all the layers. You show it to your friends, right? Maybe you show it to your therapist, you show it to maybe your siblings or your whomever, your soul partner or soul version of you. Why wouldn't you show it to someone you spend 24 hours or a good portion of your day with or your life with? Right? Those are the things that you want them to be able to hear and understand. Now, I get some people have the inability to listen to your needs or your wants or your anger without turning the table back to them. I have clients that come to me and say, oh, every time I tell my husband that he did something, or I tell my wife that she did something, they bring it right back to them, to their feelings and to their situation. And that's when you have to just show up differently. You have to, I love the whole mindset that I'm in right now. And I just hope that it resonates with everybody else. I think that people think they want more, right? We all want more, but we don't. It's not the more I think that I want right now. I don't want more. I want different. I want people to show up differently in my life. I want people, it doesn't mean I want to change a relationship or have drama or trauma or any of those types of things. I just want people to show up differently. I want to show up differently. I want to be warmer and kinder and more loving. And I want to be able to treat people with grace. Those of you who listened the last episode, I had Wendy on, and I had her on a month ago as well, and she'll be joining me again next month. And I love her energy and the time and space she gives to me and to all of us. And she goes back to that when she had her mindset shift where it changed changed who she wanted to be in her life and who she allowed in her life, that part of what she was going for was that she was only going to do things with delight. And I thought, oh, that's so great, because I always use and have been using the word with grace. And I think grace is such a great term. And I think it's how I want to present myself to others. Like, I don't want to be reactive. I don't want to feel people like have people feel like I have to be in control or I'm manipulative. I'm not. People are. I get it. Human nature is to manipulate situations so that the outcome is ours. But that's not how I want to be. I want to lead with grace so that I'm not leading with harshness or anger or resentment. But I think that Wendy, made me think about, is grace enough? And I really don't think that it is. She used the word delight, and I thought, oh, I was actually kind of taken back and jealous that she went right for that higher emotion, that more active, that more colorful thing, that delight. And I thought, oh, that's not a word that I would use as delight. It's not a word that I would describe me or anybody. I hope I'm delightful and people think that, but it's not something that I would use in my vocabulary or my vernacular. Delight just isn't that. I've been talking to her, and I've been talking to you all as well, as about trying to think of the word or the condition that it needs, that I'm looking for, or I'm seeking. And I think it's that fun. I think it's that like I kid with people and people that know me, and now you're getting to know me, that I want to, as a child, I was curious, always curious and smart. And I was always fun and funny. Those are two different things, right? Those are two just different feelings you have or you can give to somebody. I can be funny with the things I say, with my zingers and my analogies and my metaphors that I say, but I'm also fun. And it's important for me, again, my choice, to be both those things, to be both fun and funny. And that's how I try to raise myself to be. It doesn't mean I juggle or I'm a clown or any of those types of things, but I want to be just fun. I want to be fun and funny. So I'm thinking of my word, and if you want to help me, you can certainly reach out to me and give me my word, because again, it's not delight and it's not fun or funny. It's that more impactful word or feeling that I'm trying to get to. And hasn't have anything to do with resentment. And I know we've shifted the conversation because I'm passionate about this stuff, that we have to understand that when we're angry and resentment comes and grows inside of us, as it does, we have to recognize it, realize what it's coming from, and that it's coming from not what somebody's doing for us or their lack of doing things for us or their involvement in our lives the way we want them to show up. It's coming from what we're not providing for ourselves, what that we're lacking, not the right word, but that we're unable to give our joy and our happiness, and be self-aware that we are responsible for our own moods, behavior, and how we show up in our environment. An environment doesn't mean our work environment or our house or the design effort of it. It means our environment, our agency. That's the word I'm looking, is that how we show up within our own agency and our responsibility of how we react to things, and more importantly, don't react. So I want that all to come back and really make you realize that, yeah, we can be angry at people or situations or life in general, of what it gives you, our challenges. We can maybe be angry at that, but what does that anger do? Just like my neighbor, when I showed up to help her put on her socks and shoes. Yeah, she was angry, but she was taking it out on me. Did that make my time with her better? No, it made it worse. And I was glad after a couple days that I felt that. And I needed her to feel like her behavior and her energy towards me was her choice. And then I wasn't going to want to receive it much more if she wanted and needed my help, even if she didn't or want it. It's not right for me to feel someone's anger when I don't have anything to do with it, right? I didn't cause her pain or her injury, or I was trying to help with those things. So we all have to realize that when we're arguing or trying to argue or convince somebody, we have to step back and pause and think that, really, aren't we trying to And shouldn't we try to convince ourselves that what we really need comes from within us, and that what we really should be gathering is our own feelings of vulnerability and love and joy and delight and whatever my word is that I need to find, that the reality of our lives and what we receive from our relationships is comes from us, right? And if we allow other people to bring us down and bring us to a darkness or a hole or a negative feeling, we're allowing it. And we have the power to stop it too. So we have to stop trying to pull people down into our bad moods or into our negativity, and let other people raise us up, and let us rise for ourselves and make the decision to show up for ourselves. I know that I've said this before in other episodes. One of the greatest gifts that I received being pregnant was a friend of mine that I went to a parenting class, Love and Logic, if you're familiar with it. And one of the things I asked him, not in a group setting, just he and I walking out of the class, I asked him for the best parenting advice that he would give me. And I thought it was going to be one of the steps of Love and Logic, and it really wasn't. He said, as a parent, and I take it now into other relationships, that how you set the tone in your relationships with your children, at that time I was pregnant, or with your partners, I'll take it now, or your coworkers or your neighbors or whomever it is that you have a relationship or a contact with, is your tone and how you show up. And his advice to me being pregnant was, when your child comes out of the bedroom every day, greet them with enthusiasm, greet them with passion and with a level of energy that's high, because you set the tone for them. You then make them look forward to seeing you and being awake and engaged with you the moment they get out of their bedroom. And I thought that was great. And I see it. I saw it in my son when he was a toddler. I saw it now as a teenager, that he looks for me, as we did, and as I would for my own parents, even at this age, to see what kind of mood they're in, to see how they would set the tone. So that's what we have to do. And that's what that means, is that every day I would, and still do, show up 100% to the relationships that I have. I show up, I take 100% of my 50%. That's not 50%, it's 100% that I give to my relationships. And if they fail, which some have, some hard ones have, some long ones have failed, then I know that I've given it my all. And I know that there are days that I can't give my 100%. I know that there are days that I can't give 20%. But overall, I know that I show up in my relationships at all levels with all people, giving it my 100%. And that's what's important to me, is to show up every day and be me, dealing with my own emotions, my own reactions, my own triggers, if I have them, and ask myself, what's my part? How do I contribute to this? How do I show up my 100% within all of them? Again, it sounds exhausting, it sounds depleting, but if they're giving their 100%, then you're just receiving it back. And that's our goal, right? We're receiving everything we're giving, right? Do unto others as we would love others to do unto us. That's what we want. If you want to have a loving and caring and kind and respectful and a value-driven relationship, then be that, because that's more contagious than the misery that people like to bring you down into. So be that person. Find that joy, again, delight, whatever my word is, within the things that you want to receive, so that you can give that emotion, that fun and funny emotion, and delight back to it, to them, to your world, to your opportunities. So show up every day, as Rachel does now. Took a little while, had to listen to her playing the victim and her listen to complaining and building a case for her resentment that she wasn't receiving the things she needed to. But anyway, do what you can every day to show up 100% for yourself so that you can give 100% to others. I appreciate you being here today. Thanks for showing up. I know you did it for yourself. If you love this episode, show it to somebody else, share it. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening today. And until next time, keep chasing purpose.